I never imagined I'd be chasing shadows in my own town. My daughter, Emma, came home one day, pale and trembling, whispering words that froze my blood. "Daddy, he scares me." He. Her teacher. James Walker. The man everyone trusted, praised, and smiled at. And yet, in those tiny, terrified eyes, I saw the truth no one else wanted to see. Have you ever felt that gut-wrenching fear when someone you trust is in danger, and no one believes you? That's what I felt. People called me paranoid, obsessive, even crazy. But I couldn't ignore it. Could you, if it was your child? I watched Emma every morning, noticing the pauses, the glances at the classroom door, the little shivers she tried to hide. At first, I thought I was overreacting. Maybe it was just school stress. But deep down, I knew the fear in her eyes wasn't normal. It was something darker. I started following small clues, her drawings, the way she hesitated to talk about school, her quiet tears. I recorded little details on my phone, little whispers she would say when she thought no one was listening. Every detail mattered. Because one day, I realized, it wasn't imagination. It was reality. I want you to think about this. What would you do if the person everyone trusted was hurting someone you loved? Could you stand by? Or would you fight, no matter what the town thought? I spent nights planning. I couldn't confront him directly yet, I needed proof. I had to capture every act, every word, every threat. Emma's safety depended on it. And yes, I know some of you might think, why not just go to the police first? I tried. No one believed me. Everyone smiled, patted my shoulder, and said I was imagining things. That's when I realized. I had to fight this battle myself. Every day, I watched James Walker, noting patterns, listening to his words from afar, staying alert. I became part detective, part guardian. Emma had a tiny chance of freedom, and I wasn't going to waste it. To those watching on AINeuraBeat, have you ever felt powerless watching someone you love suffer? This is a story that proves even in the darkest moments, vigilance and courage can expose the truth. And trust me, what comes next will shock you. I kept asking Emma gently, "Are you safe in school?" She nodded, voice trembling. "Mostly, but he says scary things." I held her hand tighter, promising her silently, no more fear. Not on my watch. And that's when I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for luck or hope. I was going to document every moment, gather undeniable proof, and make sure justice was done. Because when your child is in danger, hesitation is not an option. Have you ever wondered what you'd do if you were in my shoes? Could you stay calm? Could you plan without letting fear take over? Think about it. This was the start. The moment I crossed from being a concerned father into a man determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. And Emma. She had no idea just how far I would go to keep her safe. After that first terrifying confession from Emma, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her little face, trembling, hiding behind her hands, too scared to speak. Every parent knows that feeling, that helplessness when your child is afraid and you can't make it stop. Can you imagine it? I started paying attention to every detail. The way she hugged her backpack tighter in the mornings. The way she hesitated at the classroom door, pretending to tie her shoes, just to avoid stepping inside. I followed her routine silently, always watching, always noting. I became invisible, blending into the world around her. But every second of observation was a lifeline. Some days, I tried asking her directly what happened. "Emma, tell me everything. I promise I won't be mad." And she would shake her head, little shoulders trembling, whispering, "He'll be angry, no one will believe me." That line broke me. But it also fueled me. Because I realized something important, the town didn't need to believe me. I didn't need anyone's approval. I only needed proof. So I started gathering it. Hidden recordings, photos of her drawings, notes she scribbled about fear. Every detail became a piece of the puzzle. I had to be smart. One mistake, and I could risk exposing Emma, or worse. I became like a shadow around James Walker, observing him during drop-offs, recess, and after-school activities. I noticed patterns, who he isolated, how he whispered instructions, the subtle ways he manipulated children. And every time I thought I had seen it all, a new detail appeared, reminding me of the stakes. Have you ever had to watch someone you love suffer, knowing the world around you refuses to see it? I lived that every day. And I needed to prepare, not just emotionally, but strategically. Then came the moment that changed everything. I caught James Walker alone with another student, whispering in a corner, the child frozen with fear. I didn't act impulsively. I recorded it, every word, every gesture. Through my phone from the hallway. I kept my distance, careful not to be seen. That footage, that was undeniable proof. I remember my hands shaking as I held the phone later that night. I thought about showing it to the police, but I hesitated. What if they didn't believe me? What if they dismissed it, like everyone else? I realized then that I had to be methodical. Evidence, strategy, patience. That was my only path to justice. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing meant being patient, silent, and calculating? That's exactly what I had to do. Every action I took had to protect Emma while building an airtight case against someone everyone trusted. I started documenting everything with timestamps, notes, and careful videos. Every small whisper, every nervous glance, every moment of fear became part of the evidence. And while I worked, I reminded Emma every night, no more hiding. No more fear. Daddy will protect you. And she began to trust me more. Slowly, she started whispering details I hadn't yet captured, giving me the full picture of what had been happening. Every parent watching this should ask themselves, what would you do if the person the world trusted was harming your child in secret? Could you stay silent? Could you plan? Could you fight without giving in to fear? This wasn't just about revenge or anger. This was about protection, justice, and reclaiming a child's innocence. And the road ahead, it was dangerous. It would test everything I had, my courage, my patience, my moral compass. But I knew one thing, I couldn't fail. Not Emma. Not myself. Not the truth. Days turned into weeks, and I became almost invisible around the school. Every morning, I followed Emma's footsteps silently, pretending to check my phone, pretending to be distracted, but my eyes never left James Walker. He was careful, always smiling, always charming, but I knew better. Beneath that mask was something dangerous. One afternoon, I saw him pull another child into an empty classroom. My heart froze. I remembered all the warnings in Emma's whispers, the fear in her eyes. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I knew I had to capture it, but I had to be careful. One wrong move, and everything could be lost. I crouched near the window, phone ready, hands shaking slightly. My breath was quiet, measured. I recorded everything, the way he closed the door behind them, the whispering voice I could barely hear, no one will believe you. If you tell, consequences will follow. Every word, every gesture, every threat was captured. This was the proof I needed. Do you realize how terrifying it is to watch someone harm a child, knowing the world around you might never see it? That was me, every second, hiding in the shadows, recording every moment, praying no one noticed. And the worst part? I had to keep it secret from Emma too, to protect her from panic. At home that evening, I reviewed the footage. My hands trembled, my mind raced. The fear, the anger, the disbelief of the town, it all collided inside me. Could the police ignore this? Could the principal still dismiss it? I couldn't let that happen. Emma had trusted me with her fear, and I owed her more than words. I spoke to her softly that night. Emma, you're brave. You've told me things no one else knows. And I promise, this ends soon. You'll be safe. She nodded, clutching my hand. That tiny gesture of trust was everything. Have you ever held someone's trust like that? Felt the weight of responsibility pressing down like a mountain? I started piecing together every bit of evidence, her drawings, the whispered warnings, my recordings. Every clue formed a timeline, a story that couldn't be dismissed. I became obsessed with detail, analyzing his gestures, his words, even his pauses. It wasn't paranoia, it was preparation. Preparation for a confrontation I hoped would never come, but had to. And while I worked, the town kept whispering, Daniel's losing it. He's imagining things. But I didn't care. Their disbelief only sharpened my focus. Emma's safety didn't depend on their trust, it depended on my action. And action meant gathering the truth, piece by piece. To those watching on AINeuraBeat, imagine walking that tightrope, protecting a child, gathering evidence, staying invisible, and knowing that a single mistake could destroy everything. Could you do it? Could you hold your fear and turn it into strength? That's what I had to do every day. I reviewed the recordings again and again, marking every detail. His threats were clear, his manipulation undeniable. I realized that I had the power now. Not to hurt him physically, but to expose him. And that realization brought a strange sense of calm amidst the storm of fear. The days ahead would be dangerous. I knew that. But Emma's trust, her whispered words, and the evidence I had gathered gave me a purpose stronger than fear. I had to see this through. I had to act, not with anger, but with precision, with justice, with unwavering commitment. And deep down, I knew that the moment I would have to confront him directly was approaching. But for now, I would stay in the shadows, recording, documenting, and protecting. Because when your child's innocence is at stake, hesitation is not an option. After weeks of gathering evidence, I finally realized something: the time to act was coming. I had recordings, photos, notes, every whisper Emma had shared, every trembling glance she had given me. The puzzle was complete, but the next step terrified me. Confrontation wasn't just about exposing him, it was about protecting Emma without putting her in more danger. Could I do it without crossing a line? Have you ever faced a situation where doing the right thing meant walking a razor's edge? That was me. Every night, I replayed the recordings, examined the photos, documented the timeline. Every detail mattered. One mistake could ruin everything. One slip, and Emma could be hurt again, or worse. I began planning carefully. I had to choose the moment, the method, and the words. I couldn't rely on rage or intimidation. I had to be precise, deliberate, and moral. And yet, a part of me, the part that had seen Emma's fear, that had held her trembling hands in mine, wanted to make him pay. That desire burned inside me. But I had to control it. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, think for a moment. What would you do if someone you trusted was secretly hurting your child? Could you control your anger and still act? Or would revenge take over? This is exactly the choice I faced. I mapped his schedule, noting the quietest moments when no one else would be around. I tested the angles for recording, making sure I could capture everything without being noticed. I practiced the questions I would ask, the calm but firm tone I would use. I had to force the truth out without giving him the chance to charm or manipulate. Emma sensed something was coming. She looked at me one evening with those big, trusting eyes and whispered, "Daddy, will it end?" I hugged her tightly. "Yes, Emma. I promise. This ends soon. And you will be safe." Her small nod gave me the courage to proceed. But doubt still lingered. What if the evidence wasn't enough? What if the school or police dismissed it? What if he found out I had been recording and retaliated? My mind raced through every possibility, every worst-case scenario. I had to anticipate it all. I also considered the moral path. Could I confront him in a way that exposed the truth without descending into revenge? Could I take the high road, letting justice do the work instead of my anger? That choice weighed heavily on me. I wanted him to feel fear, to understand the harm he had caused, but I also wanted to be better than him. I spent long nights preparing Emma too. I explained that she was brave, that her voice mattered, that the recordings and notes she had helped create were part of the plan to keep her safe. She began to open up more, revealing details she had previously kept hidden. Every confession was heartbreaking, but also empowering. It gave me more clarity, more ammunition, more reason to act. The town still had no idea. Neighbors smiled politely, teachers nodded, everyone assumed Emma was fine. No one suspected the darkness lurking behind those carefully constructed smiles. That invisibility was my advantage, but it also reminded me how fragile our situation was. One wrong move, and the illusion would shatter, and the danger would return. I rehearsed my confrontation in my mind. Calm words, firm evidence, clear boundaries. I would not be swayed by his charm or arrogance. I would not allow my anger to cloud my judgment. I would be the father Emma needed, and I would be the force that brought the truth into the light. To the audience watching on AINeuraBeat, have you ever had to act when the world refused to see the truth? That's exactly what I was preparing for. And I promise, what comes next will show that courage, patience, and moral determination can challenge even the darkest deception. I also began preparing the physical evidence for authorities. Organized files, labeled recordings, timestamps, notes, everything meticulously cataloged. I wanted the truth to speak for itself, to leave no room for doubt, to ensure that justice could not be denied. And through all of this, Emma became more confident. She began walking with a little more ease, talking a little more freely, knowing that I was her shield, that I had a plan, and that the danger would soon be gone. Her small victories reminded me why I had taken this path, not for revenge, but for justice, for safety, for her childhood. Finally, the day arrived when I knew I had everything in place. Every piece of evidence, every recorded word, every whispered fear had been catalogued. The confrontation could no longer wait. I took a deep breath, thinking of Emma, and whispered to myself, "This is for you. This ends now." The day of confrontation arrived. My heart pounded like a drum, but I forced myself to stay calm. Emma walked beside me, small hand in mine, trusting me completely. She didn't need to know every detail, I had to protect her from fear, but she needed to feel my strength. Have you ever had to face someone who has been hurting someone you love, knowing that every second counts? That's exactly what I felt as we approached his classroom. James Walker looked up from his desk with that same practiced smile. "Daniel, Emma," he said smoothly, like nothing was wrong. Like the world couldn't imagine what I already knew. But I wasn't fooled. I had seen the fear in Emma's eyes, the trembling hand, the pauses, the tiny confessions. I had evidence, and I had patience. I spoke first, calm but firm. "James, we need to talk. Now." My phone, recording discreetly, was in my pocket. Every word he spoke from this point on would be captured. He chuckled lightly. "About what?" "Everything is fine. Emma is doing well." His voice was smooth, almost rehearsed. But the twitch in his eyes betrayed him. He knew he had been hiding something. I took a step closer. "Emma has told me everything. And I have proof. The recordings, the notes, the drawings, everything. This isn't a question. This is fact." For the first time, I saw him hesitate. His smile faltered for just a moment, a flicker of arrogance cracking. But he quickly composed himself. "Daniel, you're letting paranoia get the better of you. I think you're imagining things." I ignored the dismissal. "No. You underestimated me. You underestimated her fear. But it ends now. The evidence is clear. Your threats, your manipulation, it's all recorded. He leaned back, voice calm but sharp. And what do you intend to do with it? I looked him in the eyes. I will show it to the authorities. I will let the truth speak. Emma will finally be safe. You can no longer hide behind the trust of a town that refuses to see you for who you are. There was a long pause. I could feel the tension in the room. I could see him weighing every word, trying to calculate his next move. But it was too late. The trap was set. The evidence was irrefutable. I took a deep breath, thinking of Emma, thinking of every frightened whisper, every tremble of her small body. I didn't want to fight him physically. I didn't need to. I had something stronger than anger. I had truth. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, have you ever held the power of truth in your hands, knowing it could change everything? That's the moment I lived in that room. And it was terrifying. And freeing. James Walker finally spoke, voice low, almost threatening. You think you can ruin me with this? People will never believe you. I pulled the phone from my pocket, showing him the screen. Not my word. Not her word. The evidence speaks for itself. He looked away, a flicker of fear finally breaking through his mask. And in that moment, I realized, the first step toward justice had been taken. I had protected Emma. I had taken the moral high road. I hadn't lashed out. I hadn't given in to revenge. I had let truth do the work. Walking out of that room, Emma held my hand tighter. She knew, in a way only a child can, that we had won the first battle. Not with fists, not with rage, but with courage, patience, and unwavering love. And to everyone watching this on AINeuraBeat, remember, sometimes the strongest weapon isn't anger. It's truth. And the courage to act, even when the world doubts you. After leaving the classroom, I felt a strange mix of relief and tension. Relief because Emma was safe in that moment. Tension because the next step was critical, taking the evidence to the authorities. Every recording, every note, every drawing had to be presented perfectly. Any misstep and the whole case could collapse. Have you ever held something so important that it could change someone's life, and yet felt terrified to use it? That's exactly how I felt as I approached the police station, Emma clutching my hand tightly, her small frame trembling slightly, but trusting me completely. Inside, I laid everything out, recordings, photographs, Emma's notes, a detailed timeline of every incident. I explained it calmly, carefully, making sure nothing was missed. The officers listened, some skeptical, some clearly shocked, but the evidence was undeniable. Every whisper, every threat, every fear Emma had expressed was documented. I asked them, do you realize how powerful this evidence is? How it can finally protect my daughter and every other child he might harm? The room was silent, the weight of the situation settling in. They reviewed the files, headphones on, pausing at every recording, noting the tone, the words, the threats. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, imagine finally being heard after being dismissed for weeks, maybe months. The disbelief of others can crush you, but when truth is undeniable, even the skeptics have to listen. Have you ever fought so long for someone else's safety that you feared giving up? That was me. Hours later, they confirmed they would act. James Walker would be questioned. The town, which had mocked my concerns, would finally see the evidence. I left the station with Emma, her hand in mine, feeling the weight of weeks of fear start to lift, but knowing the hardest moments weren't over. The next day, whispers spread. Parents who had smiled politely now avoided eye contact. Teachers who had dismissed me now glanced nervously. And James Walker, he tried to maintain his composure, but I could see it cracking. He knew the evidence existed, and that knowledge changed everything. I realized then that justice wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making him feel fear or anger. It was about truth, protection, and moral strength. Emma's safety mattered more than my anger. And sometimes, letting the law do the work is the most powerful action of all. I took a moment with Emma that evening. "Do you see, Emma?" I asked gently. "We acted the right way. Truth protected you. Not anger, not violence, but truth." She nodded, small smile forming, relief finally washing over her. To everyone watching on AINeuraBeat, remember, courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, methodical, and relentless. And the impact can be greater than any act of revenge. That night, I reflected on the journey, how fear, love, and determination had guided every step. The confrontation, the evidence, the moral choice to act through the law, it all mattered. And though the road ahead would include trials, hearings, and more uncertainty, I knew we had taken the first true step toward justice. The next morning, the town began to stir with whispers. I could feel it as I walked Emma to school. Neighbors glanced nervously, parents avoided eye contact, teachers muttered quietly. They all knew something had changed. Something undeniable had been exposed. And at the center of it was James Walker, the man everyone had trusted, now facing the consequences of his actions. I watched from a distance as the police arrived at the school. They spoke in low, serious tones, and I could see the moment James realized he could no longer charm or manipulate his way out. His calm, practiced demeanor faltered, replaced with subtle fear. For the first time, I saw him as he truly was, no mask, no charm, just a man exposed by the truth. Have you ever seen someone's facade crumble so completely? It's unsettling. But it's also powerful, because it proves that truth, when wielded carefully, cannot be ignored. Emma clung to my hand as we watched, small and wide-eyed. "Daddy, is he going to be caught?" she whispered. I knelt down, looking into her trusting eyes. "Yes, Emma. Justice is happening. You are safe now, and no one can hurt you again." Her small nod, full of relief and newfound courage, reminded me why I had fought so hard, why I had gathered every recording, every note, every whisper. Inside, the police questioned James. His voice was measured, but tension leaked through every word. "I'm innocent," he said, almost automatically. "You have no proof." I knew better. The recordings, the notes, Emma's drawings, all of it, spoke louder than his lies. He tried to manipulate the situation, to regain control, but it was too late. The evidence didn't lie, and the law was finally listening. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, think about that moment when someone who seemed untouchable finally faces consequences. Isn't it satisfying when truth overcomes deception? That's what we witnessed. And it's proof that even in a town that doubts you, courage and persistence can make the difference. Outside, whispers turned into murmurs. Parents who had doubted me began to approach, hesitant but curious. "Is it true?" they asked. I gave them a small nod. "Yes. The truth is out. And children will be safe now." Some faces showed shock, others guilt for ignoring the warning signs, and a few simply relief. Emma smiled up at me for the first time in weeks. Not a small, fearful smile, but a real one, confident and free. I held her close and whispered, "We did it. You are safe. And the town will know the truth." I also realized something important: justice didn't have to mean revenge. I didn't have to make him suffer personally. I didn't have to meet anger with anger. I had allowed the law and truth to do what I could not alone. That moral choice, that restraint, felt heavier than any victory through force. To everyone watching on AINeuraBeat, sometimes the strongest victory isn't the one that satisfies our anger. It's the one that protects the innocent, exposes the guilty, and keeps your own conscience clean. That's the lesson I hope you take from this story. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, thank you for protecting me." I kissed her forehead, feeling an overwhelming mix of relief and pride. The nightmare was over, at least for now. And even though the road ahead might involve court hearings or lingering whispers, we had won the first and most important battle: her safety, her trust, and the moral high ground. The days after James Walker's arrest were surreal. The town that had ignored Emma's fear now whispered in hallways and playgrounds. Parents avoided eye contact, teachers looked uneasy, and the friends who had called me paranoid kept their distance. But for me, the most important thing was seeing Emma breathe again, truly breathe, without that constant shadow of fear hanging over her. Have you ever felt the relief of knowing someone you love is finally safe? That's a feeling so deep it almost makes all the fear and sleepless nights worth it. Emma walked beside me each morning with a lighter step. No more pausing at classroom doors, no more clinging to me with trembling hands. She even laughed again, small but genuine, and I realized how much the weight of fear had been pressing on her young shoulders. Seeing her reclaim a piece of her childhood made every moment of planning, every risk I had taken, worthwhile. The town slowly started to understand the truth. Some apologized quietly, others nodded in acknowledgement, but I could see that the lesson had sunk in. That fear they had dismissed so easily was real. And the evidence I had gathered, the recordings, the notes, the whispered confessions, had spoken louder than any argument could have. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, think about this: how often do we dismiss warning signs because we trust appearances? How often do we stay silent because we don't want to be that person? Sometimes courage is quiet, sometimes it is hidden, but it always matters. I reflected on my own journey. The hours of surveillance, the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, it had changed me. Not into someone vengeful, but into someone precise, someone willing to put moral strength above raw anger. I realized that protecting Emma didn't require me to stoop to revenge, it required patience, clarity, and unwavering commitment. Even the whispers at school, once unbearable, became reminders of the importance of vigilance. Every parent I spoke with after the arrest understood that appearances can be deceiving, that the world doesn't always see the danger lurking in plain sight. And that awareness was a victory in itself. One evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me and said, "Daddy, I'm not scared anymore." That simple statement carried more weight than any courtroom victory could. It was proof that love, courage, and careful planning could overcome fear and injustice. To everyone watching on AINeuraBeat, this story isn't just about one father and his daughter. It's about listening to the unheard, believing the scared, and acting with moral courage when the world doubts you. It's about showing that even in the darkest times, careful action and truth can light the way. I stood by her window that night, watching the town settle into quiet, thinking about the path that had brought us here. Every choice, every risk, every moral decision had led to this moment: a child safe, a community awakened, and a lesson that courage and truth matter more than anger or revenge. And as I whispered a final "good night" to Emma, I felt a deep, lasting certainty. The world had tried to dismiss our fear, but together, we had forced it to see the truth. And that, more than anything, was worth everything. Weeks passed, and life slowly began to feel normal again, though nothing would ever truly be the same. Emma walked to school without hesitation. She laughed freely on the playground, no longer glancing over her shoulder or clutching her backpack for comfort. Seeing her reclaim her innocence was worth every sleepless night, every tense moment, every risk I had taken. But I knew this change wasn't just about her. It was about all the children in that school, all the parents who had ignored the signs, and the town that had refused to see what was happening. I realized that courage doesn't only protect one person, it creates ripples. Small acts of vigilance can awaken an entire community to the truth. To the viewers of AINeuraBeat, have you ever thought about how one courageous act can change not just your life, but the lives of others around you? That's the power of truth in action. It's not always dramatic, but it is always meaningful. I also reflected on myself. The father I had been before all this. I would never be that man again. I had learned patience, precision, and moral clarity. I had learned that rage, though tempting, could never replace justice. Protecting Emma had required strategy, courage, and the willingness to act quietly, without applause. And in that quiet, the real work of safeguarding her, and her childhood, was done. Emma sometimes asked questions I didn't expect. "Daddy, do you think he'll ever come back?" Or, "Why did people not believe me?" I answered honestly but gently, reminding her that fear doesn't define us, that truth is powerful, and that we always have the strength to act when we see injustice. Every answer reinforced her confidence and sense of security, which was the most important outcome of all. The town slowly began to recognize what had happened. Some parents approached me quietly, apologizing for dismissing Emma's fear. Teachers whispered their regrets. And even strangers who had watched from the sidelines seemed to understand that courage often comes quietly, through observation, planning, and moral choice. Looking back, I realized that the most difficult moments, the fear, the sleepless nights, the moral dilemmas, had been necessary. They had forced me to grow, to act wisely, and to ensure Emma's safety without giving in to anger. It was hard, exhausting, and painful, but it worked. To everyone watching on AINeuraBeat, what would you do if faced with a hidden danger that everyone else refuses to see? Could you act with patience and moral clarity? Could you fight not with rage, but with truth? These are questions I lived every day, and the answers shaped the outcome for my daughter, for me, and for the community. At night, when Emma slept peacefully, I would sit and reflect on everything. The recordings, the evidence, the confrontation, the moral choice to let justice do the work, it all came together. I realized that protecting someone isn't about revenge. It's about courage, clarity, and commitment to what is right. And sometimes, that kind of victory is far stronger than any act of retaliation. And as I watched Emma sleep, her face relaxed and free of fear for the first time in months, I whispered a quiet promise to myself: I will always protect you, no matter what. And I will always choose the path that keeps your innocence intact, your trust alive, and your childhood safe. The weeks turned into months, and life slowly found a new rhythm. Emma woke each morning with laughter that no longer trembled with fear. She ran to school without hesitation, waved at friends, and even shared her stories with teachers, without worry, without hesitation, without fear. Watching her reclaim her childhood was the greatest victory I could imagine. But the impact wasn't just on Emma. The town began to change too. Parents became more attentive, questioning what they might have ignored before. Teachers reflected on the importance of listening, of recognizing even the smallest signs of distress. Conversations that had once been hushed and awkward became lessons in vigilance and care. And for me, that ripple effect was proof that courage doesn't end with one act, it inspires awareness, empathy, and responsibility in everyone around it. Have you ever witnessed the truth finally come to light, after weeks of doubt and denial? That's what this felt like. The evidence had spoken, the authorities acted, and justice followed. But the real victory was in the quiet moments, Emma smiling without fear, the town recognizing the importance of vigilance, and knowing I had chosen the path of moral courage. I often thought back to the day I decided to follow Emma, to record the whispers, to gather proof. Every risk, every sleepless night, every moral choice had led to this moment. It was a reminder that being brave doesn't mean acting with anger or vengeance. Sometimes, bravery means patience, planning, and letting truth do the work. To everyone watching on AINeuraBeat, remember this. Courage and moral strength can protect the innocent and expose hidden darkness. Even when the world doubts you, even when you feel powerless, quiet determination can make a profound difference. Emma would often ask me, "Daddy, will he ever hurt anyone again?" And I would answer, "No, Emma. The law has acted. Truth has been revealed. And now you can live without fear." She would smile, small but full of trust and confidence. That trust, that quiet bond, was the true reward. Looking at the town, I noticed subtle changes. People became more aware, parents more observant, and the whispers of disbelief gave way to cautious acknowledgement. I realized then that our story wasn't just about Emma and me, it was about awakening a community to the importance of listening, believing, and acting when someone's safety is at stake. And for me personally, I learned that protecting someone you love is not about revenge. It's about vigilance, patience, moral courage, and knowing when to let truth shine brighter than anger. That knowledge, that restraint, that unwavering commitment to doing what is right, was my true victory. Finally, as I watched Emma play in the yard, carefree and smiling, I whispered a promise to myself that will last a lifetime. I will always protect her, I will always act with moral clarity, and I will always remember that courage, patience, and truth are stronger than fear or vengeance. To everyone watching AINeuraBeat, thank you for joining this journey. Remember, the strongest weapon we have is truth, and the greatest strength is moral courage. Protect, believe, act, and let justice prevail.